Welcome to HTML Exercise 1, Syntax. You wouldn't get great results at the gym by only watching others exercise, so be sure to follow along for the best results. This is the first exercise of a 4-part series on HTML. You're encouraged to complete the exercises in the order presented, as they often build upon another. If you're not sure how to get started, watch the tutorial about setting up your web development environment. You may be wondering, what is syntax? Well, I promise it's nothing that's difficult to understand. Syntax refers to the basic rules of a language, whether English, Spanish, or a programming language. Syntax establishes the set of rules that define how programming languages are structured and written. As a web development beginner, it's important to understand and follow the syntax of the language you're using to ensure that your code is properly interpreted and executed by the web browser. You might also be wondering, HTML what? Well, HTML documents are files that contain code used to create web pages. It's like a recipe that tells the web browser how to display the content, including headings, images, paragraphs, anything you want to show the client visiting the website. HTML is also the file extension of the document you're working in. A file extension is a set of characters that come after the name of a file, and they're separated by a dot. In the case of an HTML document, the extension is .html. Now, HTML consists of elements. An element is a piece of content that's enclosed within a pair of tags. The opening tag tells the browser to start displaying the element, while the closing tag tells the browser to end the display of the element. Tags are typically enclosed within angle brackets. For example, the paragraph element is created using an opening P tag and a closing P tag, with the actual content of the paragraph between the opening and closing tags. Some tags, such as the image tag, do not require a closing tag. Now, there's many types of HTML tags, and each has its own purpose. But let's first take a look at a simple paragraph element. The paragraph element consists of an opening and closing P tag. Here you can see the opening tag, which is simply the letter P placed between two angle brackets. The closing tag for the paragraph element looks similar to the opening tag, but includes a forward slash. So if I have content such as the word text, I can define this element as a paragraph using the opening and closing P tags. That's pretty easy, right? Let's add a few more elements. A very basic HTML document would include the following elements and tags. The first line defines the document type as HTML. This should be at the top of all of your HTML documents. Next, you see the opening HTML tag for the HTML element. Inside this, you have two sections, the head element and the body element. The head element includes information about your HTML document, while the body element describes your content. In this case, we see the word text inside the P tags, which are inside the body tags, which are inside the HTML tags. Next, you'll build your very first HTML document in Replit or using your favorite text editor, and you'll understand these concepts pretty quickly. All right, let's get started developing our code in Replit. I've launched my environment, and I'll click the Create REPL button. Once I'm in the environment, I'll look at the button at the top right, Import from GitHub. You see my cursor over that? Go ahead and click it. And now you can enter in the GitHub URL. That's the custom URL I've provided to you in the instructions as well as the documentation for this video. In this case, it's drmichaelerskine/html-ex1. Once you've done that and confirmed that the URL is correct, click the Import from GitHub button. This is essentially going to set up your development environment, create a web server for you, and bring the code I've already created and place it into your file structure. So once all of this is done, you'll see there's an index.html file. Is the only file I've provided to you, as well as a README. But once you're in there, you should see the word success, which is showing you that the file successfully loaded. You've got a couple of panes open here. You can close the one so you can really just focus in on the text editor and maybe the web view. So we can close the shell if you'd like. And now I'm going to remove the word success. That's just a placeholder word that we put there. And now we're going to manually code our very first HTML document. So you want to take your time writing the code. And I really do recommend don't just copy and paste code. Actually write it out, get your fingers familiar with the keystrokes and also how the text editor behaves. Because it does certain things like automatically complete some words, add closing tags for you, give you some tool tips as far as what you might want to type next. So anyway, what we're going to do is begin coding our very first HTML. So we start with an angle bracket and exclamation, and of course we're doing the doc type here. Notice it's giving us a hint saying doc type in all caps. You could click that and have it autocomplete or tab. We're going to type it out, DOCTYPE, doc type. Make sure we spell it correctly, and HTML after that, lowercase HTML, and then we'll add our closing angle bracket. Now spaces don't matter, so you can hit enter a bunch of times. You can do tabs just to really make your code easy to read and easy for you to understand. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our very first HTML element, which is going to be the opening HTML tag, and the closing HTML tag automatically appeared. Our cursor is blinking between the two tags. So if you hit enter a few times, you can push the closing HTML tag further down. Because remember, between the opening and closing HTML tags, we're going to have our head element and our body element. So to create the head element, we create an opening head tag, which comes with the closing head tag, and we create an opening body element or tag with the closing body tag. And again, you can remove the white spaces. We're going to be doing some stuff in between the head tags and the body tags. So it's not really required for this to work, but in between the head tags, we'll go ahead and add a title, just so the title will appear essentially up top where you see your tab name. Right now it says index.html, but when we add that in there, we can have a title that would show something else. But we'll go ahead and start with the p tags between the body elements. Notice this looks just like the code you created earlier. So we've got our opening p, our closing p, and I have the word text in between them. And we're going to change that up there now. So we're going to go into between the head, opening head, and closing head, and we're going to do a title element. And between the title element, we're going to type my first HTML document, and that will then show up there in the tab header. And in addition to the p tag, we also have these headers. So those are headers 1 through 6, and those are just h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, h6. I went ahead and did an opening h1 and a closing h1, as well as an opening and closing h6. And I typed in my content as heading 1 and my content as heading 6, so we can see what that looks like when we preview this. And notice I did some indents and some spacing, really just to make it easier to read. You could remove all the white spaces, all of this would still work, or we could even add more white spaces if we wanted to. Now what we're looking at is text. This is a text document with a .html extension. And we're going to run this text document by pressing the run button. And now we see what it would look like on the web browser. So right now it just says web view at the top, and we have a custom URL it provided us. And that custom URL will work on your phone or any device. You can share that with other people if you wanted to, and they can actually see what you created, which is kind of cool. So you now have a live website running that you created your first HTML document. So remember, you have the text editor, which you use to edit your text. That's the thing on the right. And we have our web view, which renders our text in the browser. So you can't edit the HTML in the web view, but you can edit it in the text editor. So we're looking at the exact same document two different ways. And that concludes HTML Exercise 1 Syntax. Up next, we'll take a look at formatting text and links in HTML.